up in the sky, the birds, the planes.
Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action. And you're listening to the Krypton Report.
All right, I'm here with Solomon. We're going to reveal the picture and hear his feedback.
Wow.
I want to see.
This is so cool.
Not exactly who we predicted, but what do you think?
I like.
Yeah.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, this is
That's my
this
favorite.
this is cool. Wow.
I'm Sonic. Someone's shout out to your knuckles, Mom. That's actually kind of perfect. Except for the Amy part.
But wow. All right. So first of all, we have Knuckles.
That's Brian.
We have Knuckles
Who's
as
Tails?
Hold on.
we have
Jake.
we have Knuckles as Superman here.
Yeah,
What do you guys think about this?
up to you. Okay,
It looks like
what else we got?
We got Batman Shadow, of course we know that. Batman Shadow. This looks awesome. We have Amy as Wonder Woman. That's crazy.
Wonder Woman!
We have Sonic as
The Flash.
The Flash. Yeah, what Salo said. Because that's actually kind of cool.
Wait, that actually makes sense because he's fast.
And all this makes sense, but Tails, Silver is actually Silver is Green Lantern.
Right, that's Brian.
Silver is Green Lantern. And Tails,
Tails as Cyborg makes sense, but it's kind of sad too.
What?
I don't know. Just I feel like Tails deserves better.
yeah.
So, all right. So it's going to be a comic book series, launching next year. I guess early next year. So, I wonder if it'll come to the DC app because that'd be cool. But
That would be cool. I mean, that would read this.
so let me ask you this, Solomon, real quick. The Justice League is supposed to be 7.
Yeah.
Who would you pick then to be Aquaman?
Oh.
Who would you pick, Selah? Vector?
I don't know. Victor's something really common.
But dude,
But
Silver's not that common if you think about it. For
That is true. But Vector has his own team called the Chaotix.
Well, I was thinking of Vector being Aquaman because Vector's an alligator. Alligators go in water, and also Aquaman goes in water. So that would be a cool twist of Vector.
What? That could be cool.
we'll keep our eyes open.
Yeah. But also maybe I wonder who can be Lois. That would be really interesting. I think it should. I don't know.
But does Knuckle have a Vector somewhere?
We'll keep our eyes open.
I think Catwoman made good Rouge. Just saying. But yeah. All right. So this looks cool. All right. This looks beyond cool. All right. That's my saying. Bye.
Tyler here. Hope you're enjoying the podcast today. I just want to talk about another project I've really been working on. It's the Requel. It used to be just part of our Patreon, and we still do Patreon exclusives, but I've really pumped it up, and I've started inviting friends to join me as we pitch movie ideas. I ask everyone if they can go and check it out. It's under Jonathan Tyler Patrick on my YouTube, and go like it, subscribe, and if you want to come on and pitch an idea, come on. Just check it out. It's a fun time.
Brian Peters, the creator and host of Gravely Amusing. For the past 30 years, I've studied the history of gods and monsters in pop culture and our world. As a student of theology and history, I've tried to understand evil and its impact on us. As a writer, I've tried to share this knowledge. As a comedian, I've tried to make people laugh as I do it. But as a man-child, I'm still that scared 7-year-old boy. Join me as I share the history of horror and sci-fi, discuss classic and modern pop culture, and share a creepy story or two. This podcast may scare you, it may horrify you, or it may leave you gravely amused. Listen to Gravely Amusing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and wherever podcasts are found. Follow us on Twitter at gravely_amusing or on TikTok at gravely amusing.
We have a $1 Patreon. Yes, I know everyone asks for money, but our $1 Patreon each month gets you commentary tracks for releasing movies, DC movies. It gets you my requel series where I pitch ideas about movie sequels, prequels, or whatever. It also gets special bonus episodes. So check that out for $1 a month. That's all we ask. Keep it cheap, keep it simple, and help us keep going. Check out the link in the show notes or Patreon Krypton Report.
This is Dan Jurgens, and if you want to have a good time, keep listening to the Krypton Report.
All right. We got a little intro there now.
That was dope.
Yeah. All right. Got new features. Hello. Welcome to the Krypton Report podcast with your host, Tyler, the Superman of Blue. And with me is James, the Superman of Red. What's up,
Hey.
James?
Hey, what's going on? Nothing. It's been a day. I'm just, composing myself and managing my own emotions right now.
Nice.
So this will be good.
Yeah, this will be good. He's like, I figured this out. I sitting here and I'm looking at all these different features that they have, and I wish that they would, like, the next feature they could add is so that you could pick your own color right here, so that I could be blue and you could be red.
Yeah, or swap them.
Yeah, that's my next. I'm gonna be like, hey, I love all the new stuff you guys did, but let's just make it so we can pick our own colors. Unless I just don't know how to do it yet, but whatever.
Yeah, can you mirror image the back without the Krypton? I today and even this weekend, specifically because of all the political ads. Ooh, I feel like Superman at the end of this action trade we're going to talk about today.
Ah, yes.
In the last story arc of this, I'm just.
My kids even were like, "Daddy, what is all of this?" And I'm like, "Well,
it's garbage. It's trash. It's blaming everybody for them all doing the same crap. That's what it is."
It's just a bunch of people shifting the blame on somebody else so that you'll think that they're not to blame.
Exactly. That's exactly what they are. 1,000%. That is exactly what they are when they are all collectively to blame.
And it sucks. It sucks because it's the same commercial every time. But we're not here to talk about commercial. Let's talk about some fun stuff. First of all, if you're not subscribing to our $1 Patreon, you're missing out on such wonderful things as the Gore Report. That's right. That's James Cole's podcast. He's monthly podcast hosted by Mr. James Cole. Check that out. You can look for me and the Requel podcast. I appear there on Patreon as well as on my YouTube. And we also have, which for some weird reason I don't have right here, James and I do the Supernatural Report. And we go over the TV show Supernatural.
I was gonna say, I think the last episode we recorded, if I can speak tonight, just dropped.
Yeah. We need to do some more. We just, James and I were on a good rhythm, but then some personal things happened for us here, and it's just thrown stuff out of whack. And we are recovering. I'm also trying to figure out, got this new camera and lighting and stuff, and my face looks orange all of a sudden. So it's kind of weird. But hey, I will figure this out because that's
handsome man, but that is not a good look.
I know. Because that's what heroes do, right?
Yeah.
I was looking for our promo for the Supernatural Report. I know I have it here somewhere. But let's talk about some of the news that has occurred recently. So some of the news, it's not been a whole lot, but we have had some. So let's get into it. Are we ready? First of all, this guy, Matthias, not going to attempt it, is cast as Krim of the Yellow Hills in Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. So that tells me that they really are adapting that book. Now it'll probably be, I read that book about they were do this, and we'll review it next year. So that's cool. I mean, it's a character, it's a new character. Story was good, but it's a very interesting story to pick for your entry point for this character of Supergirl in this kind of world that is Supergirls. So, but I'm not familiar with this guy's work. So,
No, yeah, I'm not familiar with his work, and I only know the character from that story. I actually haven't finished it. I only read the first 2 issues. I have them all, but I only read the first 2 issues at the time, so I actually have to complete that, which will be nice to read before it comes up. But yeah, definitely with the villain being Krem, and I mean, is this the title of the movie? Is this going to stay Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow? Or are they just using it as a filler title because that's the adaptation that they're pulling from, kind of like it was Superman Legacy, and then it's just Superman.
I mean, you know as much as I do. All right,
Well, so more or less posing that as a question,
I mean, I'm gonna go on a limb and say that for right now, it's a good title, and I think that it's a great title. And not to jump over to what Marvel does, but they've used titles on stories that weren't really the story of the comics. So, but if they're casting him as Krim, that definitely means they are pulling from that story. But okay. All right. Moving on. We got some more illumination here. All right. So here's some happy news. Ready? Boom. My Adventures with Superman season 3 is now recording. So they're at least that far in the process of recording the dialogue, and the actors are in there recording. So we will be getting some My Adventures with Superman soon. Hopefully, maybe late next year, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I hope it comes out before 2026.
Yeah, I just feel like next year being the big year of Superman, that it would be very important to have it. Like it would actually be kind of cool to have it 2025 into 2026, because it'd be a nice board. 2026 is going to be kind of the year of Supergirl, so that could be something very interesting there. Okay, the next thing I have is, where is this? This, which Batman villains Bane and Deathstroke are getting movie treatment at DC Studios. It's from the Hollywood Reporter. Some places are reporting that it's going to be Bane and Deathstroke together. I read it as separate movies and entities. I think with Deathstroke it could work, because he's a villain, but sometimes he's that mercenary. But with Bane, I don't need like the Bane story told in like the Todd Phillips Joker world vibe.
Absolutely. Like, so they've both had I don't even want to say anti-hero turns, but they've both had, because they're not either one of them are not really heroes, but they've had stories where they're not the most evil character, so they've fought against that evil character, But I mean, like Joker, like the Joker movie, he's the I don't even know if you can call him the protagonist of the.
I mean, he is the protagonist. I mean, he's the character we're finding, and just that's why a protagonist always doesn't mean hero.
Exactly. I mean, it just means the character that you're like kind of from their you're in their world, in their point of view, kind of thing. So, I mean, I would definitely be down for it, but
I know you,
the joke, especially for Bane, for real. But even Deathstroke, they both have some really cool stories, and really cool history and origins. But Todd Phillips was like, I want to make a movie about this deconstruction of mental illness, and they slapped the name Joker on it and placed it in Gotham City, and that's it.
because it sells.
Yeah, so it would sell. It has nothing to do with the comic books. It has nothing to do with Joker, the Batman. Like, you could name them anything, and it would still be exactly what it is. For that film, maybe even the sequel, because Harleen Quinzel in the sequel, from what everything we can tell, is 0% Harley Quinn. That
We'll be
used to in any way.
We'll be talking about that later, but
So
but I just having Bane do his own thing, it doesn't really work as well for me. But Deathstroke, I feel it does. So all right, what else we got here?
Yeah, well, Deathstroke has more of a family and a story like surrounding it. You know what I mean? Bane is it's really interesting and it's really cool, but it is just like, if you've read the books and the stories, like, they would be adding a lot. You know what I mean? It would be, because his story, there is a lot, but it's a lifetime, and it's just gaps. It's bits of him coming up. It's not a full tale of time. You know what I mean? Like all the time they've spent making stories about Batman's days of training. That was never a thing for a long time. It was Bruce Wayne disappeared for like 7 to 10 years, and he came back as Batman, and he trained around the world. That's what you heard. But they've since done so many different stories of filling in that time of him training.
Yeah.
You don't have all that time filled in for Bane. Not in the comics.
Yeah. So okay. Let's go with this one. All right, Alan Tudyk is going to be a secret character in Superman. Okay.
I mean, I love Alan Tudyk.
But so my thing is, he's already what, Dr. Phosphorus?
Dr. Phosphorus and Creature Commandos, yeah.
So he's already part of the universe. And the other thing that I've heard people kind of say is that he's going to be maybe voicing or whatever, however they do it, because we don't know, Crypto. That's been my favorite speculation. I just saw like, okay, maybe he'll appear as Dr. Phosphorus, but my favorite's people being like, or is he Crypto? And I'm like, okay, didn't think about that, but you know what? Sure.
Yeah, I mean, he's done a lot of voice acting and just
Clavers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's a prolific voice actor, He's in so many Disney movies. I don't want to say for sure, but he might even be Hey from Moana. I'm not 100% on that, but I think I heard that somewhere. But I know he's Duke Weaselton in Zootopia. He's the Duke of Weaseltown in Frozen. Yeah.
And he's the lamb or whatever in Wish. But I mean, like he's so like that's
We'll see. He could do a Crypto, just dog noises and things like that. I'm sure of it.
I'm like, I'm just gonna say if they were just gonna do a regular dog and do dog noises, I would want Frank Welker to do it. But if there's going to be something where like they activate in his collar that helps translate, and all of a sudden Crypto has a voice, like in a post-credit scene, I would hope it'd be like Alan Tudyk. But okay, let's keep going. Let's keep going.
I mean,
Um,
because you've seen the images of Dr. Phosphorus. So even if they
Yeah.
did a live action Dr. Phosphorus in that movie and he was playing that character, he'd pretty much be unrecognizable.
Oh, yeah. So, due to the tremendous response of Super/Man, the Christopher Reeve story is releasing in theaters everywhere on October 11th. So that's great. Brian and I had tickets to go see it, but I had a work thing where I was on call. Brian went and saw it. But October 11th in theaters everywhere. I'll try to go see it. So that's awesome to have. I know that our friend Zach Moore did a special episode of Always Hold On to Smallville, where he went and saw it. So that's something cool. All right, keep moving on. This we're going to throw up real fast. Boom. We got the Sonic the Hedgehog universe crossover with the DC. There was a 2-minute video. There's a clip here that you'll hear from Solomon talking about this. But you know what? I kind of want to I'm cool with all of these, but I kind of wanted Tails to be Robin more than Cyborg, but I guess Cyborg makes sense.
Well, especially if you're doing it Justice League style like this.
Yeah. So Solomon is pumped. He loves Batman and he loves Shadow, so this is pretty much his thing. Target's releasing a whole clothing line special, so guess what? Special T-shirt that he's getting for Christmas. But the comic launches next year.
I suppose it makes sense for Knuckles to be Superman, punching stuff.
That was my rationale too. I was like, all right.
And Sonic being Flash because gotta go fast.
Exactly. It makes sense. It's too on the nose. Like, okay. This just popped up. It says Millie Alcott's Supergirl will appear in another DC Studios project before Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. Cool. It better be like a post-credit scene in Superman because that's the best way to like introduce her character. Because the only other DC Studios project would be Peacemaker season 2. And if she appeared over there, that'd be kind of cool too. So
right.
But
I'm betting it's coming out before Lanterns and stuff. So
yeah, I mean, Lanterns is still casting. So I mean, still Supergirl, but I feel like that would be, that would, if she did in Lanterns, it would be like Lanterns would have to somehow be done, and I just don't see that being a series done before they shoot a movie. But it would be like Lanterns. It would be shortly before the film appears. But I could see her being teased in Superman or Peacemaker season 2 somewhere. Because I don't really see her. She can't be in Creature Commandos, like, because that's done.
Yeah, I don't see her popping up in Waller.
But Waller's still. That's kind of like what Peacemaker. It's kind of like not a
season 1.5.
or like 2.5 or something, however they end up doing it. So Waller's still not even been filmed or made, and that's even farther out, so but okay. All right, let's keep going here. This is cool. This is a bunch of the covers of the upcoming Superman issue. And as you can see, and I had some others, but I didn't put them on here. The DC books starting in October are going back to the new DC/old DC logo. And it has the titles of now have the all in at the top of all their books. And I looked at what comes out this week. There's not really a whole lot of books. There's Absolute Power 4, and I think Batman. That's part of the all in. But other than that, there wasn't anything else that really grabbed me that's coming out. But I'm very interested in seeing this, what they're going to do with the Superwoman Lois here.
Yeah. I just from these images, I like the look of Lois's Superwoman. It's very Kara Kent from Lara Kent.
Yeah.
It's very Lara Kent, very Supergirl from The Flash, and also a mix of like what she looked like in like All-Star Superman when she had her powers there.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what they do there and with this big all-in initiative, and we'll talk about it as it comes out. And like we've been doing comics from the app, and we'll take an episode to kind of catch up on comics. And
Yeah, I think after we do this and Absolute Power wraps up, I'd like to do the Absolute Power story arc. Maybe focus on some Superman bits in there, as well as the Action Comics story that is taking place apart from it. Before we jump into wherever we're going after that.
Yeah, I was just kind of looking at yeah.
Because I'm reading the whole Absolute Power arc, but of course I think we're only going to stick with like the mainline title and then the Superman the Superman books.
I'm just looking at All In when it starts. It might be a few months because we might give it some time to get a couple of issues out. I'm just looking at where we're at.
I mean, I don't know like that. I mean, like the New 52, what we're finishing up, and then the Absolute Power before we go into All In, and then figure out how we're going to, because we're going to have Absolute Superman as well as the regular Superman books.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll kind of see how the books come out because our plan is to be done with the New 52 era by the end of November.
Yeah. So that's my lock screen.
Nice.
And then because they shared the whole thing as just one shot, I've got the Absolute Superman.
Nice.
As my background. Yeah, I like it.
Well, my background is Superman 25, but with my children and my wife wearing Superman apparel posted over top of it.
Nice.
So my family is awesome. So the next thing is we had this guy as we close out Batman month now. Batman received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And I like this costume. It's like a very great, like grade A cosplayer costume. But it is interesting to me that, like I said, like it's Hollywood and they don't have like an actual movie studio or like a couple of people in different movie costumes because it is the Hollywood Walk of Fame, from movies. And this is a Batman image that we've never seen on film. But like, this is an awesome suit. Like if you were wearing it like to a cosplay or something.
Yeah, it's a really cool suit.
And then like there were some people like I did not see Michael Uslan there, and that was kind of troubling to me as a producer and who got Batman all the movies going, has been a producer on everything. And then there was no Batman actors like live action, but there was this awesome picture. Of the animated Batman voices with Diedrich Bader, Hamish Linklater, Troy Baker, and Jason O'Mara. I kind of wish. Oh man, his name. I wish Bruce
Greenwood
was there, and he's my second favorite Batman voice actor, and Roger Craig Smith.
Right. And of course, Kevin Conroy, just missed Batman, like the most iconic Batman of all, like live action or animation. Kevin Conroy, like the most iconic Batman of all, wasn't able to see that, and not that Batman doesn't deserve it, but Superman should have gotten the first star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
You know what? I don't disagree, but at the same time, like there's such a big thing for Batman films, and like Batman movies have made so much, and
I do understand.
There's been a better track record for Batman at the movies than there has been for Superman. If you look at, we have the 4 Chris films, and then we have Superman Returns, which was in the wake of the general public, was not a huge thing, and then Man of Steel was mixed, and so it just seems like Batman's been more consistent with just the general public in all of his films. Not that that's how it should be, but I'm just saying. All right, keep moving on here. I saved the last little bit here for this little nugget. The Superman and Lois series finale will reportedly feature something that no previous Superman themed TV series or movie has ever done before. All right, speculate. 1, Superman doesn't come back to life. 2,
Well, they do talk about that being the finale, so it's like you're not coming back the entire season, because that would be a jip.
Well, I mean, they have him in the season, but if they're like going to do something, that's never been done, like in TV or movie, well, there's been instances of him returning, but if they do something where he actually stays dead, that'd be something.
That means he would have to stay dead for the entire season, though, but not. And they are talking about the series, the finale.
But I mean, like if he's
you're talking about staying dead, like he's gonna die at the beginning.
Yeah, he's dead when the season starts, and then the idea is like they end the season with him never actually coming back, so they don't. That's like one idea I had.
Yeah, but if he's only in flashback, if it's all Superman stuff in flashback, I just from that idea alone, I'd be very disappointed because they're not really pushing the story forward.
They're pushing the story with everybody else, and that's what I'm saying. Like that's something that would be huge. Like almost not having him in the current.
Yeah, in my opinion, though, that sounds disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna agree. The other thing would be having him with Superboy flying or something like that. Because I feel like sometimes people say stuff like this and they're trying to think like it's something huge, and it'll be something like super small and minor. Like, oh, okay. They'll give John and Lois powers too or something,
Yeah.
And it'll be like all 4 of them as a super family.
Right.
That's something that's never been done in live action.
I mean, you could probably think of a number of things that it could be,
and that's why I'm saying like it's just such an attention grabber. But we'll see what it is. I mean, how about this, James? The whole series is something we've never seen with Superman in live action before. Superman with 2 children.
I know, right? That's the entire series. It's for real. It's true.
So I just saw that and I was like, okay, that seems like an attention grabber. But okay, so now we're going to talk about James's favorite thing in the entire world. No, not on this podcast. We're going to talk about the last episode that we will cover of Superboy for a while. We are going to talk Superboy season 1, episode 9, The Alien Solution. And then we're going to take a break from Superboy because we are going to be gearing up for the return of Superman and Lois. Oh, buddy.
Yeah, buddy. I'm excited.
I don't know if I'm emotional already. Like I'm so like thinking about taking the next day off work, but I don't think I can. I think I have court that day. No, I have court the 7th. I don't have court the next day. So, all right.
October 8th.
No, I think I have court the 7th and the 8th. All right. Well, I'll figure it out. But
I think I have part of the day off on the 8th.
Season 1, episode 9. I might just go in late. I'll figure it out. Season 1, episode 9, The Alien Solution. A strange cloud-like alien who can take over others' bodies comes to Earth hoping to steal Superboy's body so he can add it to his collection of warriors. All right. James, I watched this episode like a weekend plus ago when we were going to record it before. And so now I'm a little fuzzy. But okay. I remember watching it and being like, oh, man. And then it's like, yeah, I'm going to take over. And of course he takes over Lana. Because I remember like there's an awkward like kiss between Lana and Clark like early in the episode.
Yeah. There was practically Superboy and Lana making out.
Yeah.
And then yeah, there was I I mean, you see why there was an awkward kiss, because he was like distracting her while he caught a baseball so it didn't like blast her in the back of the head. So it was one of those kind of distractions so I can do something you don't see me doing, like catching a hard baseball with my bare hand before it hits you in the back of the head. But
And she just kind of
it
like, no
was
big deal. That's what
yeah,
friends do. That's what
yeah,
friends
he
do.
kissed her and then he was like, I thought you were someone else. I was, what are you talking about? You've just been hanging out with your best friend Lana this whole time.
Yeah, he was an idiot, but whatever.
I
It was weird. I
know
will
it wasn't
say,
serious.
but it was like, I don't know, just grab my best friend, like, let's make out. Like, I don't know. It was weird.
I mean, she's gorgeous and he's stupid not to.
But Lana, like, they have a very interesting relationship throughout this entire series. I'm just gonna say that it's
Yeah.
it's sometimes this really great friendship, and then they try to build on it more. But then I remember, like, there's a bunch of, like, I did like the scene where there's a bunch of like, I guess they were sports players or something, like, and they see Lana like in trouble, and they're like, hey, leave her alone, and they go over to actually help her, and then it's this alien thing, and they can't. I just like that because they were like actually trying to be positive.
Yeah.
And then we hear a little bit later, like, someone tells Clark, yeah, man, something's up with Lana. He's like, what? And he goes and he takes off to save her. I like John Hames Newton, but some of the sadly, some of the episodes and the material that he's given,
Yeah,
is not the best.
so the alien who is the being who he fights, with that choreography that needed a speed ramp at least. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think a 3-year-old could dodge any one of those blows because of how slow they were. But the being, the character, I know he was like trying to speak and sound different like an alien, and how he was talking about the power that this body had and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But he was sounding very, it bordered on racist Japanese.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like, I think just because of the armor he was like wearing, which was very like generic, almost in it, but it had like a samurai look to it
Mm-hmm.
in kind of a way, I think is why they like went that route. But I was like, and sometimes it was very strong, and other times like it backed off because like the cadence was different, just to sound different, like he was an alien,
Mm-hmm.
like he was some sort of like just conscious being, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was weird. I was like, I was like, that one was I just saw it and I heard it and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But I thought the paramedics said that Lana was dead.
Yeah, they did. But she was possessed by the alien whenever she was okay. It was weird.
So I was like, she's dead, but so did the possession like revive her? Because the possession, we find out the body that he was using has been dead for years. But he could still control the motor functions and everything. He kept it preserved. So I don't know. Not sure. Kind of seemed like a little gap there, like a plot hole.
It ends where it has kind of a to be continued that we picked up later on in another episode. So
he follows the being to his ship in space. talks to him and refuses to allow him to take over his body, and then races him back to Earth to protect Lana, because basically he decides like, well, if you're not gonna let me do this, I'm gonna go destroy Lana. And he goes to protect Lana, and he inhales this being because he just looks like a mass of floating gas or something. He inhales this being and blows him into an oxygen tank and seals him up and puts him in a science freezer, a 250 degree or negative 250 degree freezer.
Mm-hmm. And that's just something that he's lucky to have around.
Right? You know, I mean, you got to be lucky to be on a university that has a science lab.
Yeah. You know, that's,
I did like how he chilled his bottle of water though. And he was he kept changing the channel by just blowing at the TV, hitting the right button.
I mean, you got to have some fun with your powers, right?
For sure. That's control, man. Being able to hit one button with a breath, change the channel.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into some comics. It's time to get into Before Truth, Volume 1. Superman. And it's so weird, okay, how here they start renumbering Superman with Volume 1, whereas in action they just kept going.
Yeah.
You know? And that's what made it so hard when we were trying to do this experiment. Now,
I had to ask you which one it was, which one we were reading.
I'm going to throw this out there for everyone listening is we're doing action in Superman, and the next week is action in Superman, but we're going to stop before the final 2 issues in each because we're going to pull those all into the final days of Superman, which will conclude be our last podcast in November as we go into December. And so the first issue out the back, we kind of talked on this. We actually did a little bit of this because, oh man, see, my app already messed up. Is the powerless issue. We talked about this is after the solar flare because I wanted to, because it kind of went into the John Romita Jr. stuff. And I wanted to kind of touch on it a little bit after we had done the Man of Tomorrow. Because I didn't realize how much Romita stayed on as artist, and that was my bad. But so the first issue of this arc technically starts with Superman in the T-shirt on an airplane, and it says "Before Truth, Part 1." It says after everything changed. Writer is now Gene Luen Yang, and John Romita Jr. is still penciler, and Klaus. Is it Jansen or Johansson? Is the inker? Do you know?
I mean, I would say either Jansen or Klaus Janssen.
Okay, Janssen. I like Janssen.
Yeah,
works for me.
I would say with the name of Klaus, I would go with Janssen.
Yep, me too. Then it says before, and what we have is we see that Jimmy and Clark, Jimmy catching everybody back up. Jimmy knows Clark's secret. Are investigating these people that are basically inner gang getting these weapons. Superman shows up. Now this is his second costume. So it's like his new 52, but it's not as much armor. It's more of a cloth. The little differences. And he does his solar flare, but it's a controlled solar flare. And he takes out this machinery. And Jimmy even asks him, like, Clark, you got to warn a guy before you do that solar flare thing. And don't you need to, I don't know, lie down or something? And he says, I learned how to control it with the Justice League. Well, they find out that one of the guys that was at that buy was where is he? Really?
A senator.
Yeah, I was looking for I don't know about you, but I have horrible luck sometimes with the website on my computer compared to Senator Norvell.
Yeah, I mean, I almost never read on my computer though.
I just do only podcasts because my iPad was dead, thanks to my lovely children.
Yeah.
Because our power went out today and they were playing on it just to. But then we learned that Clark starts getting these text messages and somebody sends him saying, I know your secret and I want you to do something. And Clark immediately goes to Jimmy and is like, did you tell anybody? Did you tell anybody? Did you slip up? And Jimmy's like, no, it's been the most, sacred guarded thing I've done since learning. And he's told to basically allow this girl to not be taken by the FBI. But Clark does, but then he changes his mind and goes and saves her. And during that process, like he's wearing all black, and you got Jimmy in a getaway car and Lois. They're getting shot at and everything. And then that's the end of the issue. And then the next issue has one of the greatest Superman covers of all time. This is basically me getting dressed in the morning when I don't have to go to work because like I can't wear, what I want to wear when I go to work right now. But this is the greatest cover and pretty much me in my closet in the morning. Like,
yeah. I do love this cover, and no matter what, it's just because it's Teen Titans Go. But yeah, I love how it's just all of the suits hanging on hangers in the closet. It's great.
But this next one is when we learn that this the lady works for Horde. That's how I pronounce it. It's just Horde, and it was teased. Yeah, Hodor. I was trying not to be like Hodor.
Not, yeah, I was gonna say not Hodor, Hoarder.
But I was like, and she sees Clark. Like, this is what I thought was interesting: is Clark's wearing jeans and a shirt that got tore up, and Lois goes up to Clark and she rips up the rest of his shirt, and it's revealed that he's Superman. And yeah, I just thought it was interesting because she sees it, and who else knows? Does Jimmy know? And now you're like, oh, this girl knows, but she's like, yeah, the person I work for is a mad genius who goes by the name of Hodor Root. And then we see Clark with his Superman like top, like just the shirt, in his jeans with like cowboy boots as they're flying the car. And then they go see Toy Man to help them get access because they need special masks to get into the Horde Central. Yeah. What were you like? What did you? Man, dang it! What is going on? It doesn't want to work. There we go. So they go to the main place with, like I said, the fake masks, and everyone who works there is basically being blackmailed into something that Hodor Root has over top of them. And he sees the hub that exposes him, and Lois sees the images back to the beginning of Action Comics. And we see that the girl kind of basically betrayed them because that's what she does, because she's being controlled. They want Superman to join Hodor. And he basically, goes full suit now with his cape that comes out of somewhere and attacks the place. And the girl helps them get out of there. What's funny is Jimmy calls her Blue because she calls him Red because of his red hair.
So he calls her Blue because of her blue hair. Blue and red. Sounds familiar.
Yeah, it does.
I do like how she's got this power to like speak programming into electronics.
Yeah, she's like one. So he's like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "Talking code." I thought that was cool. But basically, we see that the Horde Root is just a node. That's not really him there, and that he's going to use this leverage over Clark all the time. So This Superman goes solar flare again because of course he does, to blow up their base. But why he does that, something comes out and basically absorbs a bunch of his energy, and then he's just laying there butt naked, as Superman does often. That's what James does, just hangs around. So when we get to,
I like to walk around my house, man.
So I think it's hilarious because when we get to Before Truth Part 3, and he wakes up and Lois is laying there next to him, he's talking, and then all of a sudden it dawns on him he's naked, and they're like, we're all adults, and he's like, where's my clothes? And
she says, rumor is that you're an alien, but you looked pretty human to me. Impressively human.
And we have a lot of like really neat tension between Clark and Lois here about, she drops the line a little bit later about how she almost fell in love and everything. And she talks about knowing what happened to Clark in Action Comics early on with like the electric chair and what Luthor and her father did to him, but then actually seeing the images and how it gets to her. And they're kind of in this interesting spot where he's trying to open up and talk to her, but she's still upset with him. And then he tells her, stab him with a fork. And then Jimmy's throwing up. He feels sick to his stomach. And what we learn is that Jimmy had nanites inside of him from the latte he drank while they were there at Horde headquarters. The fork does stab Superman, and he's not healing and coming back as fast as he should. This is all part of the plan to enter this phase of the depowered Superman. Horde Root threatens Superman with exposing Clark. And my computer froze. The app froze. I need to just get my tablet.
He threatens to blackmail Clark to release his identity if he doesn't do what he says. And this is, by my calculations, it will take you just under half a second to get to me, or more accurately, my latest node. That's more than enough time to unleash your identity into cyberspace. And he wants Superman to release his solar flare to charge up more of these robots, more of these energy storage experts, as he calls them.
And then we have Lois and Clark going out to find out where it's coming from because they're able to track the signal. And Clark has to pick Lois up and fly her. And she says, you're going to carry me like we're getting married. And he's like, either that or I can carry you by your armpits. And then there's like this awkwardness how he's carrying her. But they go to the headquarters. And basically what you just said is he gets captured and starts solar flaring to charge those things. And then Lois basically does it. She tells him, Clark, it's done.
Sorry. I thought we were in there.
No.
I flipped ahead just a little bit. Same issue, but I was ahead a few pages.
Yeah. She's like, Clark, it's done. I did it just now and you're free. And then like we see, he's got nothing on you now. They don't have anything on you anymore. You're free. We see a panel of the Justice League and Batman's like, And then, Clark breaks out and starts going. And he starts yelling at Lois, do you even get what you've done? She said, I did it to save you. I'm just one person. You can't risk dozens of lives for just me. Tell me you wouldn't have done the same. And he says, I was wrong, Lois. It was better when you weren't part of both my lives. And he leaves. And then Before Truth Part 4 starts with like a version of the Royal Flush Gang that attack Clark Kent on the side of the street. And I feel like this is where the comic gets really interesting, because if we could have juxtaposed reading this with Truth later that Bendis writes when Clark reveals who he is, the two ideas of what would happen if Clark Kent was revealed to be Superman is a very interesting thought, because we even have a police officer who's like supposed to arrest him. And then Livewire shows up at the Daily Planet and has Lombard, and more villains are showing up. We see Lois arguing with Sam Lane. And she's like, Clark is a friend. And we have all these characters like Atomic Skull, Croc. And then we see the rest of the Daily Troop, Perry, are all tied up. And it's, what's his face? I'm looking for it. He says, everyone on board was killed. He says, Clark, remember me? I used to work here. I brought your mail every day. We used to joke around about the monarchs, remember? He's like, yeah, Dylan, right? Let's end this peacefully right now. He says, 2 months ago, Titano threw a subway train halfway across the city. Everyone on board was killed, including my wife. I was wrecked and couldn't hold on to my job. It all seemed so random. Until earlier tonight when I found out you were Superman. My wife died because of you. So, of course, he's attacking. Perry gets shot. And then Perry... Go ahead.
The curious thing I have about this character, because obviously he's just grieving and blaming him, but did he blame Superman for what happened before he knew it was Clark? And then now, just because he knows that it's Clark, Titano has no idea it's Clark. She was on a random train, you know what I mean? Like, grief will make you do a lot of things, but I'm just curious with that character, like, is he blaming Clark because he knew Clark and that's the only reason? Or, like, did he blame Superman for what had happened? Because if he blames Superman for what happened, then you can see why he would go after Clark the way he does. But if he didn't blame Superman and then he all of a sudden started blaming Clark because he talked to this guy at work, Titano wasn't going after Superman because he was Clark or any other reason like that.
Like you said, grief, man. Grief makes you do stuff.
Yeah.
And then we have Perry. I don't know how to make a Perry in this. Like, Dylan may have been a whack job, Kent, but he was right. You're a danger to everyone connected to you. Chief, I'm going to figure something out. Each of us knows coming in that the job comes with certain risks, but to willingly endanger your fellow reporters just to maintain this lie of a life, it wasn't a lie. Yes, it was. And you know what the worst part is? I let it happen right under my nose like some kind of chump. Take those glasses off. Consider this a dismissal, Kent. And then Lois passes Clark, and Perry says, I'm disappointed, Lois. You outright know better than to break news like that on your personal social media feed. You're going to make it up to me by writing a proper article due yesterday.
Yeah, so in during this run of Superman in the comics, when it was coming out and everything, a lot of people actually didn't like this run. Didn't like this area of Superman being depowered and his identity being revealed and everything. I think the only real problems that I have with like this whole arc crossing over with Superman in action is that Superman is using his solar flare a lot.
Yeah.
I understand the testing, but just like kind of using it as the resort to go to, you know what I mean? The couple of times he does, I'm like, he's using that very destructive power, also weakening himself like in the middle of danger, like very often. I think they did that too much. I understand him testing it, but that being like, well, I'm just going to solar flare and blow this whole damn place up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that the way that he keeps kind of doing it over and over again was a little ridiculous. And then Perry's characterization, calling it a lie of a life. Later on I think in the action book, he says pretending to be one of us, or pretending to be human, or something like that. Like, it's a very it doesn't seem like the Perry White that we've ever had. And certainly not the Perry White that we get, like you said, in the Bendis reveal. He walked in and revealed who he was, and Perry went and gave him a hug.
Yeah. And that's
what I mean?
Because that's what we would want. That's what we would want.
I understand the "you can't work here" kind of thing. You know what I mean? Or maybe you put other people in danger, but to smack him, to call him a lie, to call him a pretender, you know what I mean? All this stuff, like when they find out he's Clark Kent, like, they can trace it back. Clark Kent was a child. Like, he grew up on Earth, but they're acting like he didn't exist before he became Superman and Clark Kent. Like, you know what I mean? Like he is an alien invader, but when it comes down to it, Clark Kent grew up on Earth in this place. You know what I mean? So it's the personification of Perry does not make any sense to me in these stories. And I love Gene Yang as a writer.
Yeah.
You know?
This is that time that we've talked about, the DCYOU, where Superman gets his depowered form here, and he's outed as Clark, and Wonder Woman becomes the god of war. Batman, Bruce has his whole like disappearance, and Jim Gordon takes over in like that big bat robot, the super heavy run. And the Flash, his suit looks a little bit more like the TV show, where it was all red with the red symbol behind and everything, which was actually some good Flash writing, actually, by Robert Venditti, if I remember correctly.
He's a good writer.
You know, we have Superman give this big speech with Jimmy about staying away from his friends. And then he goes to a getaway motel where they take cash, and he pulls out a crystal and starts cutting his hair. And we see I'm going to force the man of tomorrow to help remake the world. We see these villains setting themselves up. And it's a very interesting, this African-American dude with like a tech toga. And we see this like,
well, he says that he's just a new node. So like the hoarder root is just like controlling bodies.
Mm-hmm. And then we have Clark with his haircut in a hoodie talking to Jimmy, and he gets recognized. Hold on. By Horace Horseman. Horace Horseman is the name that Jimmy gives to Clark. He's like, it's the first thing I came up with. He's like, do I look like a Horace?
I do not look like a Horace.
And the guy who recognized him basically attacks because he's trying to take on. He said, I thought that was you, Clark Kent, Superman. You recognize me? He says, should I recognize you? A couple years ago, before I got my powers, you put me away like I was just some kind of chump. Humiliated me. You owe me some respect, Superman. I'm here to collect. And Superman does one of my favorite. He just smacks his ears.
Yeah.
He goes down. And he's like, Jimmy, I need to get out of here. And he takes off flying. And we see a bunch of clips where it's like different people online talking about Clark and about Superman and what he's doing.
Yeah, and like mostly social media posts.
we have Lois showing up to his hotel, and he basically says there's nothing to apologize for. It's the choice you made. Goodbye, Lois. And that's
kind
it.
of the last time that's kind of the last time he stays there where he is, because he said if she has her ways to find him, then others can too.
And then we go into action, which picks up right here with the volume 8 Truth. Now, the only other title that plays really heavy into this latter part here, and that's what we're going to read next, is the Superman and Wonder Woman book. And that's why we're going to kind of wait to wrap it all up at the end, because you start to see, like we've pointed out a little bit, like there was some crossover with Superboy, there was some crossover with Supergirl, but during this era here, there's a crossover that's pretty heavy with, because you also have the Batman and Superman book too, that catches up, because originally that title was Batman and Superman of Earth 2 in the past, and then eventually it switches over to being Batman Superman of this Earth and time. So
yeah,
but we're not going to go,
because Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman on Earth 2 all died.
Yes. And we're not going to
stopping Apocalypse.
And we're not going to go into that title, but we will touch on it a little bit with the ending, but because we were just focusing on Superman's story. But it is worth noting we will be doing starting here soon, we will be jumping into the Wonder Woman and Superman book, because I do remember really liking that when I was reading it. And I don't know if I ever read the whole run, so that'll be fun. But all right, now it is time for Truth. And Greg Pak, really good writer. And
yeah, he wrote Superman Doomed. He wrote that.
Yeah.
That storyline.
And what I loved about this run of Superman, just at the time I was working and I could wear t-shirts to work and everything. And I wore a Superman t-shirt every day and jeans. And I pretty much felt like I was just cosplaying Superman every day, because if this is all it was jeans and a t-shirt. Right.
I do love the first issue here. The black and white with the red and yellow. That's the only color you get is the red and yellow. Back in the last book, before I get too far in this, the Powerless issue at the very beginning, when when the Justice League goes out to the bar and they're drinking, and they're like, has he ever had, because they're telling him to keep quiet because he's talking really loud about his superpowers, and they're like, has he ever had alcohol? He says, not as a human. And Flash says that he must have the tolerance of a flea, and then he wakes up with a hangover.
It is hilarious, because his body, you got to think his body is not just normal human. It's actually weaker, because it's actually never done any of the type of human activities that we take for granted. So it's kind of
he took for granted.
Yeah. So it is kind of funny,
in this story, he goes to the fortress, and the fortress won't open for him. And he's and it actually reclaims the suit, takes his suit from him. He ends up having to hike through like the Arctic and Alaska.
That's one of the
freezing to death.
And that's what I said. What's interesting is like this suit, like he's wearing jeans a lot of times already, even having this suit. And the fortress doesn't recognize his DNA because he's been altered. And it takes the cape too, because he says, my father's shield ripping from my body, like my flesh itself being torn from my bones. And then my cape. And he's fighting, pulling on the cape, and he actually ends up ripping part of it. And then this was a big deal. I'm gonna share this real quick here. Like that image of like Superman in the t-shirt with the jeans and everything. And I called this like Punisher Superman for a while, because
I like that one with the yellow outline and the black background and the red S. I really like that shirt.
And like that's like his look. And then we get into like you said, he's basically wearing boots and a pants, and he goes into like a truck stop place, and he's hiking, and he finds a discount like 70% off Superman t-shirt, and that's the t-shirt that he will wear. And that's not what he buys. He buys this other shirt. He gets a burrito. He sees this guy selling a motorcycle. He pays for it, and then he's got cash like hidden and stuff in his boots and all this. And then they figure out who it is. They want more money, and it's a whole big deal. Burrito, bike, and now to sleep a couple of years. And they're like, hey, that was Superman. Did you know that? And they're like, hey, we want 2,000. And they're gonna jump him, which doesn't make any sense to me, but I'm not an idiot. So they hit him with a pipe, and he's wearing his Eat Your Greens t-shirt, and it's so weird seeing him like with his head shaved and everything.
Right.
But then he goes, okay, I'm not proud, but that felt good. And another character says, you really are Superman, aren't you? And the last shot is him on the motorcycle with the t-shirt, and it says, hell yeah. So that feels a little interesting.
Drawing on his inner kite man.
Yeah. And we see him basically traveling around, experiencing things, rocking his t-shirt.
Yeah, it says whole new world. 1,000 reporters, cops, supervillains, and secret agents are probably hunting me down this very instant. And I can't just fly home and fix everything in a split second any longer. So for the first time in a long time, I have to take my time. Feeling my first actual caffeine rush, getting legitimately hungry, and having the best lunch ever every time I sit down to eat. Staying inside when it's raining because, man, it's cold outside. Simple pleasures, I could get used to them, but I know it can't last.
It is a very interesting dynamic. And I feel like that's part of this story that maybe is not explored enough here in Superman, and maybe it's touched on a little bit more, but I just feel like that's a very strong, right? That page in itself right there really sets us up for what this Superman is right now. And
because like we've seen and read stories in the past where like he doesn't necessarily have to eat.
Right.
He is sustained by the sun, but he enjoys eating. He likes eating food. But he's never had hunger pains. He's never been hungry and how it satisfies your body when you eat. So for him, it's like eating real food for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And it's kind of interesting because we are beginning this arc and ending this arc with a Superman who is depowered. Like he's not full power, and there's still some cool things to come. But so he's back in Metropolis. Why does he go back to Metropolis? That's an interesting question. But we see like these police are out there, riot gear and everything. And we see Jimmy, and Jimmy brings him in. And we stand with Superman. The block is throwing a party, and it's all for him. And basically what happens is the people of the town, of the block, they're very respectful and they're honored. And he meets the people, and he meets where's her name?
He calls her Lee.
Yeah, Lee Lambert. I knew I was looking for it. And he's like, Fire Brigade 202, right? She's like, how'd you? Oh, okay. I get it. You really are Superman, aren't you? And then we see that some people are in trouble. Clark takes the radio and takes off running. He leaps, so he's back to kind of leaping. And he wraps his what's left of his cape around his hands. And he goes in fist fighting with this giant black monster thing. Meanwhile,
big shadow monster.
Meanwhile, the police are moving in on the people that were throwing the block party. And then we get to Lee Lambert, who's trying to like calm everything. And Clark's fighting the monster. He eventually takes the monster down with some chain. He talks about how heavy it is. But where is it? I try to yell something big and brave and dumb, but my heart and my throat pounding like it's going to explode. Man, I've been scared before, but now don't know if I'm strong enough. Don't know if I'll survive.
Yeah. Like a couple of things. Like when he leaps, he must have some control of his descent, because otherwise it would be like when the Hulk lands and just breaks everything.
Mm-hmm.
So he must have some control over that descent. And I love that he wraps his knuckles in the shreds of his cape that ripped off.
So he gets back as the police are moving forward. They start shooting some like tear gas, and we meet Dante, who was like a baseball player who whacked the gas can back with his bat. And Lee's trying to be calm, and we see these riot police coming towards all the people. And then Superman shows up and he throws the chain from the anchor.
Throws an anchor chain.
And Lee's telling everybody to sit down, and Superman says, "I'm so damn tired. I can barely lift the chains. I can't clap my hands and make it all blow away. I can't fight for them, but I can stand with them." So he stands and he has the chains around him. And we have this officer up in his face, and then the Metro SWAT show up. The Specialized Metro SWAT.
Which we find out with a bunch of unauthorized weaponry.
And they just start beating the crap out of Superman as he stands there and takes it. And then Jimmy's getting pictures. They start to come after Dante and Lee. And we see Jimmy, like, basically this shot of Jimmy, just kind of like, oh no. And Superman loses it and punches the cop in the face. Hardcore in the face.
Yeah.
And like he's lost it. And I kind of go ahead.
I was gonna say, so like reading this issue, like this Binghamton, he's horrible. Like,
yes,
everybody's sitting down. I mean, this is the stuff like we see on the news, and the thing that people fear, cops doing what they want, kind of a thing, beating on people who are not fighting back, doing things like that, attacking a crowd of people. And that's kind of what we get here, is all of that, and they attack a crowd of people, and that's why Superman loses it and hits people, and then hits the officer in the face. If you're reading this like issue by issue, you'd be like, oh man, Superman just like messed up. You know what I mean? Like, justifiable why they're like, arrest Superman, da 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 da. But then we're gonna get into the next issue.
And part of me wonders if I don't like if they were like, okay, that was great, but we have to do this because that was too real. Because like you look at the old Action Comics, how Superman took on real world problems and things, and they're like, okay, that was great, but we can't have Superman do this. We have to take it up and into the fantastical, because right off the bat we see him feeling bad. He punched him when almost didn't hold back, but we see that that officer is a shadow monster. And
and starts attacking the other officers and the civilians.
And Dante, and then just attacks Superman. And so now it stabs Lee in the arm, and Superman like lets go and starts, beating it. And then the police join in and help. Then of course the mayor gets involved and sees what's going on and asks Mr. Kent to come into her office. And then Superman, go ahead.
I was say right here at this part when I like how they tackle Superman off, and then the rest of the police kind of open fire on the monster, and then we go to the mayor, but they are seeing that Jimmy Olsen's shots are being instantly uploaded to the internet to his website. So they get to see everything that's going on, which, like you said, it kind of like pulls it back because it was like very real. But I love that because I loved the way the story was told here, because it's giving you this real time what's happening. You know what I mean? It's not an edited for TV, spot to twist and make you think something by taking an excerpt and saying this about it, instead of what it actually meant in the entire thing. And that's kind of like how this is, he pictures of him punching a cop, but this cop, all the pictures he was taking show this cop, attacking civilians unprompted, unwarranted, and then him being a shadow monster and attacking cops and civilians on his own.
And it's a what do you call it? It's kind of what was needed, because Clark, like I said, gets called from the mayor, and then he wraps Lee's wound with part of his cape. He gives her a part of his cape. Jimmy and Clark get back to their apartment, and it's been busted.
Jimmy gets a shot of it. I like it.
Go home, alien. They broke everything, but Clark finds one picture that he takes with him. And he sees all the people from the block party of the neighborhood and says, "You're all Superman now." And Dante's like, "Damn straight." And Clark looks a little rough. Like he's got, his eyes swollen. And the picture we saw was him and his parents. And I think this storyline lends itself better that the Kents are dead, because we don't have that tension or fear like, oh man, what's going to happen to the Kents? But he goes to City Hall, meets with the mayor, and basically the mayor is a shadow monster.
Well, the mayor is Wrath, like the person behind it. Behind the shadow monsters.
And we have this a lot of Superman punching. And we learn she's like, "I am Wrath." And he's like, "Okay." But then there's shadow monsters spreading out all over the neighborhood. We see Dante wearing a Superman t-shirt, and they're fighting. Oh, it's not like zombies, but it's, kind of these shadow monsters. Lee gets, all of a sudden, from her arm, it starts to grow. And she's kind of being taken over, but yet she's controlling it.
As we go, she's Wrath, so we find out like she's kind of like feeding on rage. So like the shadow monsters like bring out all your anger and rage, and it in turn makes her stronger. So we get a lot of that from Superman's point of view, all the anger that he's feeling, all the anger that he's been feeling around, probably around because of the shadow monsters, but towards people, like especially attacking a bunch of unarmed civilians.
And my thing is, I wonder if she was being set up to be a character to be used more often. Like we were going to have her appear in other stories, but just didn't get there. So I don't know, because of just how they I don't know. I'm just saying. But it is what it is, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say what their ideas might have been, where the story was to go. I mean, I think from a writer standpoint, you kind of have you kind of want to write for a complete story, a beginning, middle, and an end. But also editorial has to kind of get in there because it is a serialized story that doesn't ultimately have an end.
Yeah. And I wonder with this story, like if he was really working on doing something real and serious, and then they were like, "Hey, we can't do this right now," because I feel like sometimes that's what happens in comics. You feel like they're really doing something important and like really deep, and then they pull back or something, and then it ends
Right.
up being like, "Oh, okay, that's
Well,
what they did." Okay.
right. Well, I mean, I'm not sure like if it's because they're doing something real and then they pull back, or if it's we want to inject something real in here, give you something to like latch onto and care about in this story and about this character, and then continue telling you this fantastical story that we have in mind, like the police brutality, and then Superman protecting immigrants and stuff like that from racist and you know I don't know, nationalists.
No, I mean I think I just kind of go back to like what Action Comics was set up and how it like dealt with the original troubles of people.
Oh
It's
yeah, I
still
mean the original, the first time Superman shows up, he beats a wife beater.
that's the best.
Yeah.
And then we find out that Wrath, um, uh, oh no, we see her like go into like this puzzle room, of, like, and it's like mirrors and doors, and we'll find out more about her in a moment. But we have Blind Justice Part 1, where we have which kind of shows us what Superman's up to, as we get him stopping a shipwreck. We see him fighting with Batman, being the Super Heavy, which is the Gotham City Police Department. We see him sitting there listening to people argue and fight. And where is it? Maybe I could, if your handwriting wasn't so jacked up. Why don't you try coming in not hung over once in a while? Who the hell do you think you are? Seriously, put a little effort into it. Maybe then I'll help you your damn tips. And Clark gets up as this short order cook, diner guy attacks this waitress.
Yeah, he has he says his Wayne Tech light refractor I'm wearing distorts my face just enough to keep me from being recognized.
Which I love. And he gets up and he gives her a big tip as he leaves. We see he's got this like camper shed fortress that he's set up for himself. And we see little things of like the clips of what's going on around, and we see that looks like they've dug up his parents' graves. And then Toyman shows up. And when Toyman shows up,
he's going by the name Archie Clayton.
Yeah. Clark basically says you screwed up, and then he blows up his brand new hideout he just established. And that's where I'm like, with the way that this is kind of going concurrent with Batman, Superman, and Superman Wonder Woman, I'm like, do we see any of that in those books? Because that was a really cool setup to just all of a sudden like done. And he's like, goodbye, hero. And then we're back to the street, Clinton Street, Metropolis, Clark Kent's old neighborhood. We see that he's got a job driving a truck because it's part of his plan. Archie does. And he's getting in. to the technology, and what he finds is where the Horde Root have been, or Hordor, not Horde Root, geez, have been taking people with powers and experimenting on them. And he rips off his shirt, revealing his Superman t-shirt and jeans, and then just starts busting up, saving the people who are like been beaten, torn apart, part machine.
Well, they have like a young girl, in a stockade.
Mm-hmm. And then we see there's Lee, and that black goo shadow xenomorphin looking thing starts going on Clark. And then he's kind of got the green eyes. It's almost like they're trying to do their own version of like a symbiote venom thing. And Clark is busting through, and he talks about, they've infected me. You infected me. Don't you, Wrath? And then he gets everybody out of there, and he tells, wait here, John Henry's on his way. And he goes running through the woods. And he goes to find Wrath. And he does find Wrath. And he finds Lee, because she follows him, of course. And then they find Frankenstein, because of course they do, riding a giant shadow bull animal thing. And then Frankenstein joins the battle. Because of course he does. Because what else makes sense?
Yeah. I mean, I like the New 52, how they really did get into kind of like that dark magic territory. They had a line of stories. I think it was Shade, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Agents of Shade, maybe.
Yep.
Yeah, had Frankenstein in there, which this is going to be David Harbour.
Yeah, like I'm actually thinking about reading some of the Agents of Shade books and Creature Commando books, just as part of my Halloween monster reading. And
I think the main agents of, like the main Shade books and things like that I read was the Forever Evil Blight books.
Oh yeah. So Superman battles with Frankenstein. And of course he defeats Frankenstein because he's Superman.
Well, yeah, but still Frankenstein in DC universe is a beast, even to go up toe to toe with a depowered Superman.
So we get the whole kind of thing here from the mayor, who is now Wraith. Let's see. She says, 25 years ago, I was just another child of Metropolis, growing up on the South Side. And as long as I could remember, I knew the world could kill me. But through it all, my mother spoke with her calm voice. Jenny, stay down, and gave me hope. People like my mother built safe places. They protected me, nurtured me, helped me thrive. And then when they thought I'd finally made it, it all fell apart. I had flown through law school, landed in the best job at the DA's office. Southside Girl made good. But when Brainiac collected the city, I couldn't do a single damn thing to stop him from killing 6,309 people, including my mother. That was your job, Superman. And then when I became mayor, I dreamed of working with you, that smiling protector in red and blue. But instead, just a few years later, I got the Doomsday Superman, covered in spikes, radiating killing mist, taking on Brainiac when he returned, but threatening to completely destroy my beautiful city all the way. We should have seen it from the beginning, you and all your kind, an invading alien force, each more dangerous and inhuman than the last. But then we learn that she got this power from Vandal Savage. That he brought this into her. And take it away, James.
Yes, I took his gift. I learned how to turn my righteous anger into power, and there's no need for you, Superman. Um, so basically, Superman, he kind of, he says he understands. He dives into the shadows, um, and he eventually tries to save everybody by taking in all of the shadow.
Yep, because that makes total sense.
Yeah, this is all this time I've been fighting the shadow, but what if I just let it all in? And it takes the shadow from everybody. It takes the shadow from Lee. It takes the shadow from all the people who were being experimented on. And she says, it's gone. He says, good. Oh God, Clark, are you? I'm perfectly. Goodbye. And he disappears into the shadow. Then he kind of comes back out, and like they're dropping bombs onto the shadow. But he uses the shadow to stop the bombs from like blowing up and causing like all this collateral damage.
And then, right when he's sitting there, prominent with the shadow, Vandal Savage opens the box and takes it all back. And he says, I'm the only one who's going to save this world.
Yeah.
And then
He says, somebody says, oh, thank God. And he says, no, thank Vandal Savage. I'm the only one who's going to save this world.
And Clark's just like, it's just me again. He's talking to Lee. Maybe you should be grateful. And she's like, I like my Superman the way he is. And that's the end of the book. And I mean, there's a lot of great covers at this time because they did a lot of like the alternate covers.
Yeah. I wonder if this book, because I know earlier in the New 52, we had Trinity War and everything, and we had Pandora. Like, is this shadow like Pandora's box? Or
it is interesting that
just a random box that Vandal Savage has come across in his millennias on Earth.
Well, Pandora's box was actually a skull that opened a portal to Earth 3.
Oh, yeah, that is right.
And I like Trinity War, and that was the Forever Evil. And it's so interesting because that story really did not bleed into the Superman title or action. That was more just a Justice League kind of event. The only thing it bled into were the point issues. We talked about that where the 23.1, 0.2, 0.3.
Yeah. They did say something about how Superman had killed Dr. Light in one part of the story, because that's when Atomica stabbed him in the brain with a piece of kryptonite because she was shrunk down inside of his body, inside of his head, and set off his heat vision.
So, but all right, man, we did it. We have one volume left from Action and Superman, and we'll finish the New 52. And it's been interesting, and we'll kind of compare it as we get back to there. But that is all from us today. Thank you for joining the Krypton Report. Check us out on YouTube as we're putting more YouTube concert content out. Also, check us out on Saturday mornings as we do Saturday mornings with Superman. Either 8:30 or 9:30 Eastern Time. Watch along. We live stream Superman the Animated Series on our YouTube and Facebook now that X is being a pain. And then, like I said, there's our Krypton Report that we do, the Supernatural Report on the Krypton Report Patreon. And James, my co-host, is awesome, and he'll be having a new episode of the Gore Report coming for you in October.
Yes,
and you'll have to check that out to actually hear it and enjoy it. But send us an email, kryptonreport.com. Check the show notes for our link tree. You can find everything Krypton Report there, and let us know what you think of the show, any ideas, and if you ever want to be on the Krypton Report, let us know.
Yes, please do. $1 Patreon, bunch of extra shows, bunch of extra listening.
And it just helps us.
It's a lot of fun.
It helps us expand and do more. So, but all right, let's check this out. This new feature. Let's see how it works.
Look up in the sky.
We want to thank you for checking out the Krypton Report podcast, and we ask you to check us out on all of our social media, on Twitter X, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, Hive, Threads, YouTube. We're everywhere. And if you want to be a guest on the podcast, just send us a message and let us know.
If you are like Tyler and James and can't get enough super talk, check out these other podcasts. Digging for Kryptonite, Supergirl Radio, The Last Sons of Krypton, The Superboy Legacy Podcast, All-Star Superfans, Superman the Animated Podcast, The Aspiring Kryptonians, Always Hold On to Smallville, The Geek of Steel, and Truth, Justice, and Hope